Trump appealed to Bernie supporters too. And it also says so much about the Democratic Party establishment actually weirdly fears its liberal wing more than it fears Trump. That's what's actually facilitated the rise of this right-wing grouping.
Yeah, and let me tell you why. I agree with you. I understand it. It's my own experience as well. Here's the reason. Franklin Roosevelt was a politician, more or less like the rest of them, coming from a very well-connected family who had already had a member of the Roosevelt family, President, Theodore Roosevelt earlier. He ran his early campaign as a middle-of-the-road, what we would nowadays call a centrist Democrat. I remember looking at his literature of his first race. He believed in a balanced budget. He didn't want to have deficit spending, even though he was running in the early years of the worst collapse of capitalism in the history of that system. So you can tell this is no lefty. But he was a smart politician. And when the ground opened up underneath him, when the economy really collapsed and there was a sudden movement, and I want to remind people, it was a movement of the American working class sharply to the left. They joined the CIO unions in a way millions did it, never had done that before in America. These were young people who came from families where nobody knew what a union was, let alone had been active in one. And people joined two socialist parties, a conventional one and a Trotskyite-linked one, and a U.S. Communist Party. And they all worked together with their differences, but they all worked together. And they went to the president and they said, you better do something for us or you're not going to be president very long. In a way, they said to him what you just told us about your family in Western New York. And he was smart enough to realize they had the votes. They had 30 million people, well organized. You're not going to defeat the Republicans if you don't have them. You're dead. So he made a deal. I will give you what you demand, but you've got to stop talking about revolution. And with lots of disagreement and lots of grumbling, the New Deal coalition, unions, two socialists and one communist party, made that deal. They downplayed the revolutionary rhetoric and they went to support him. And we got Social Security, minimum wage, unemployment compensation, and a 15 million person federal jobs program, the most progressive period of American history. No other period is even close. But here comes the punchline. This president paid for all of that in the middle of a depression when the government had no money by taxing corporations and the rich, which is where the money was. And he told them, you better give me half of what you got, because if you don't, there'll be a revolution and you won't got anything anymore. So this is a good deal for you. Half of them went along. The other half went to work to found the John Birch Society and the whole right wing of American history since that time. Mr. Roosevelt, who dared to tax corporations and the rich to provide a massive program of support to the working class, was reelected 3 times. That's why they had to crush Bernie. They know where that can go. They know where that can lead. And they're terrified on behalf of their donors what that might mean. They don't want to go through that experience, and they don't want to have, once again, such a government produce the reaction of the ruling class, which has been the undoing of the New Deal, which is our politics in this country since 1945. They have all that in their head, and they don't want to risk it at all. And that tells you as much about American politics as you can digest at one time, but it is the story of this country's situation.